Yo, what's going on, Reggie?
What's up, man? Had a good day today?
Yeah, man. I can't complain. Can't complain. What
Good.
about yourself?
Perfect day, man. It was all
Been
good. It was all good. Like you
yes,
said,
sir.
can't
That's
complain. Made it
nah,
back here
man.
for another show.
Hey, you can't change nothing if it was, you know what I mean?
Right,
You gotta
right,
deal with it.
right, right.
But yo, man, I'm glad you're here. You know, we're in here another evening of Turnbuckle Talk. Today is January the 26th. The year is 2023. He's Reggie. I'm Mr. 411. We welcome you all to the show. And Reggie, I really been enjoying the series so far, man. Uh, I just really enjoy it. It takes me back to my days of going to County Hall in Charleston, South Carolina, with my grandfather. Friday nights they had
Mm.
wrestling every Friday night. If
Oh,
so, if I
word.
was in Charleston, South Carolina, Friday night we going to wrestling. You know,
Oh,
we gonna see Boogie Woogie Man. We gonna see Ric
yeah.
Flair. We're gonna see the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Rock and Roll Express, all those guys were there. So,
Right,
you know,
right, right,
that was their territory.
right, right. Same here. I couldn't wait till they came to make it, man. Dad got free tickets. So we got free tickets a lot of times, man.
Oh
So
man, you can't
I
beat
couldn't
that.
wait. Yeah, I couldn't wait, boy.
Yeah, you can't beat that. Man, something else we can't wait for is the Royal Rumble. It's coming up this Saturday at
Yeah.
the Alamo Dome. It's gonna be jam packed up in there in the Alamo Dome. This is the 30th anniversary of the Alamo Dome.
Oh,
So
yep, yep.
yeah, so
They had
that's
a
gonna
lot
be
going on
cool.
this year.
Yeah, and you know, Royal Rumble is basically turned into a WrestleMania ish type show. You know what I mean?
Mm,
As we call it, what the Big Four, the Grand Slams, and
right,
it's really grown, man, from way back in its origin. And
right.
so, man, it's going to be exciting.
This starts the road to WrestleMania.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. There's a lot of stories are going to be set up from that. So yeah, man, we are going to talk about we'll talk a little bit about the Royal Rumble, but the main thing that we're going to talk about tonight, and you probably watched looked at the title on the YouTube page, and we thank everybody for hitting subscribe, like, notification bell, share, because you'll get more shows like Turnbuckle Talk and all the other shows that come on this network. So, but you probably seen the title uh, about Hulkamania. Did Hulkamania is was it good for wrestling? And
Mm,
so, with that said, we're going to talk about uh, Hulk Hogan, and we'll just go throughout his career and just talk about some things. You know, if you have anything that we may not bring up, feel free to put it in the comment section. Send us a message, and you know we'll make sure to follow up on it. But we're going to talk about as much as we can within the time frame that we do have. And so, with that, Reggie, are you ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock and roll, brother.
All right, there you go. You saying it like him. All right, turnbuckle talk. Here we go. All right, we're back, and you're gonna have to excuse me. I'm gonna let you know now. I'm probably gonna be grubbing a little bit. It took me like 2.5 hours to cook this meal that I was following the instructions on, and we're gonna see how it holds up. If I survive the whole show, then that means I pretty much just did at least did enough to survive out here.
Right, right.
So all right, so we'll do that, and yeah, feel free to do the same if you're at home. Just sit back, relax, pull out your favorite beverage and enjoy it. So we'll go ahead and jump on the Royal Rumble because I know we was talking about maybe a couple things just that we didn't talk about on the last episode. So we'll put a pretty bow on the Royal Rumble as it is drawing near. Before you say anything, Reggie, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this out. I thought this was funny. There was like a mini Royal Rumble at the Laker game last Friday with Shannon Sharp,
Oh, all
and in the
right.
post game interview, my boy Dylan Brooks was interviewed, and I just couldn't help but laugh when I saw this picture right here. He had on the tank top like Brock Lesnar.
Oh man, Brooks, you're definitely not the beast incarnate, boy.
No.
You're definitely not that.
Yeah, I thought that was it.
I
I
think
thought that was
Shannon might have
funny.
been ready for him though.
Yeah, yeah. It would have been interesting to see, but everybody knew that it was a safe environment. That hold me back. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
So
right, right.
yeah,
Too much money
but
on the
what you
line.
have on? Yeah, but what you have on the Royal Rumble, man? As it draws
Uh,
near.
After we left last show, I think Monday night, we mentioned Brock Lesnar, and you just mentioned him there. He actually made his comeback. He attacked Bobby Lesnar. I'm sorry, Bobby Lesnar, Bobby Lashley.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering now, is he going to be in the Royal Rumble? What's his storyline going forward? Are they just going to save that match, or are they going to have them collide in the Rumble? I don't see Brock winning the Royal Rumble. He don't need it. He has one under his belt right now. He's away from the main event picture, so I don't see him winning. But I see him wreaking havoc, eliminating a few. Might be last five, last 10.
yeah,
So that piqued my interest to see if he's going to actually show up for the Rumble.
yeah. I think, man, him and Bobby Lashley, uh, it's time for them to really get that match in. They've been kind of
Mhm.
teasing us a little bit here and there. They had a couple, they had a matchup, but it was kind of like. But then Roman Reigns help out uh
Right, he
Lashley in
helped
one
out Bobby.
match.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah, and then
Right.
like I think they had another match, not quite as clean, but I think they're really going to set one up for something off this Royal Rumble is going to set up
Right.
Lashley and Lesnar to have a real match, and I'm all in for that
Yeah, I
because
can see. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm all in for it, and I'll just get your thoughts on that, and also talk a little bit about what you might think the Hurt Business possibility um, with all this
Right.
storyline.
Right. Actually, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that is something you want to look at. I think they're, like you said, 1-1 in matchup, so this is probably going to be the deciding matchup. And I could see the Hurt Business playing a role. And if I'm Triple H, if I'm smart, if he's smart, what I'll do is have Omos interfere with it, so you'll
Okay.
get that Hurt line connection going back. And then you can get almost a little storyline going with Brock, and who doesn't want to see Brock versus Big Omos to test some
Wow.
of Brock's strength. So
Yeah,
that'll
look,
be a good matchup.
that would be very good. In a way to reunite the Hurt Business, but also put a little twist in it with almost in there. Man, Bobby Lashley has somebody on his team that's bigger than him. Like that would be
Right.
that's scary.
Some
And it
muscle
also
behind the
help.
muscle is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. Who's gonna be able to deal with that? And then, you add that helps Shelton Benjamin. He's been
Hmm.
around a long time. Uh, credit is due to him for his longevity and the way that
Right.
he is still in the game. And and it looks like he's not disgruntled or anything. He's a professional, and so it'd be good to
Right.
see
He's
him and
comfortable
then
with his
Cedric.
role.
Yeah, and good for Cedric to get back in the middle of things too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I hope that happens. And they have the best mouthpiece that you can have outside of Paul Heyman there with
Right.
MVP. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah, he's giving me the Bobby Heenan vibes for those who
Yes.
remember Bobby the Brain
Yes.
Heenan.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Both of those guys,
Okay.
great, great, great managers, great talkers, great motivators for the guys. So I would like to see that storyline. Brock, Omos, MVP in there. You never know what Lashley's role going to be in there. Is Brock going to get somebody to help him out with the Hurt Business? So we'll see. We'll see at the Rumble how they're going to do with that storyline.
Yeah,
Any
can't
changes?
wait.
Any changes to your pick on the Rumble? I think you had Cody, right?
Yes, I had Cody on the men's side and Rhea on the women's side.
And
So
actually, when we got off last time, I thought about that women's side. Rhea would be a good foe for Bianca, but don't forget about what's her name, Rodriguez. I forgot her
oh,
first name.
Raquel.
Raquel Rodriguez. Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause she was getting a little push before she got injured, and she's supposed to wrestle Ronda, but they put Shotzi in her place because of the injury. So I could
Mm-hmm.
possibly see it coming down to those two getting the win on the Rumble on the women's side.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a to me it's a dark horse, but it's a solid pick to make. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's
right,
like somebody
right,
saying the Cincinnati Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. Like
right,
that's a
right,
good pick. You know what I mean? Even though you may have like, I mean, not just go to Super Bowl, but actually win it. And
right, right,
but you still have like the Chiefs in there, and you got all these other teams, Eagles. But picking Cincinnati is not a bad thing. And so yeah,
right.
picking Rodriguez would be good. She really has since she's moved into the SmackDown roster, she really has done a good job. You know, all the weeks I've seen
Mhm.
her on there, and she definitely looks the part. Her and Rhea Ripley will be great.
Right,
They had
right.
some great matches in NXT before Rhea Ripley moved on to Raw and Bianca Belair. You know what I'm saying? I'm holding on to that. Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley. That's what I'm holding on to.
Right, right,
Um,
right. I think
one
that's
more
what
thing about
everybody
the
wants to
Rumble.
see.
Yeah, that's what I want to see, but you know, hey, there's always other options and other ways to go. You know, you just never know in the sport. But
Right.
how about this on the men's side? The Intercontinental Champion and the United States Champion will both compete in the Royal Rumble. How you
Mm.
feel about that? Do you feel like they probably should defend the titles at the Royal Rumble, or what? How do you feel about it?
No, no, because in the past they have had matches on the Rumble card, and to me that takes away from the Rumble. Unless you have like Roddy Piper did back in the day, he won the title and then went on to compete in the Rumble. But I think them being in there, uh, it solidifies the Rumble. It doesn't take away from their title. They're trying to get a title shot, which those are mid card titles, and you still want to get up to that upper echelon and get that title. So I kind of like them being in there. And by the way, Gunther might put up a fight. Actually, we
Yeah,
overlooked him
hey,
because the favorites are Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, but Gunther ain't no joke now.
no, he ain't no joke, man. And you know, man, it'd be at some point he's definitely gonna be in the World Championship picture. He's
Hmm.
gonna be in there. He's gonna have the title at some point. He had the Europe, what is it, NXT Europe.
Right,
He was
right.
a champion over there. Man, he's been doing big things, and I've been kind of watching him since he was over there as Walter, and
Hmm.
he's imposing, and his
Right,
whole
right.
faction is very good. So they're kind of traditional wrestlers. The ring is sacred. You got to love that kind of stuff, man.
Right, right, right. Ring is sacred. He's the tough, hard nosed heel, that old
Hmm.
school, like you used to have the Russians back in the day. He's
Yeah,
that same menacing European force. So
right.
I can definitely see him in that title picture.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And then here's a lot of the winners for a lot of the years there gone by. We just had that
Mm.
up on the screen, and but we have our winners. And yes, I'm gonna stick with those. Well, with my two picks there with Cody Rhodes and Bianca Belair.
Yeah, I'm
And
sticking with Sammy on the men's side, and I'm going to go with Rhea. I think Raquel will be the last; those will be the last two, but I'm going with Rhea with Ripley for the win.
okay, all right. Well, yeah, that's coming up Saturday, so you know, get ready. It's on Peacock, and it's definitely gonna be exciting. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the show today.
Right, right.
And
The media players.
yeah, you want to set everybody up with how we got to this point of who we're going to talk about?
Yeah, the other day I was just chilling and gave me a message about it being the anniversary of Hulk Hogan's victory at the Madison Square Garden over Iron Sheik, which I didn't know. I didn't even know that date. I didn't get any notifications on my YouTube. So, sometimes Hulk Hogan, he's swayed media. So a lot of people got tired of him, got burnt out of him. But you can't take away what he did for the sport. So with that said, I mean, you have to recognize it. You can't say I don't know anybody that has uh, greatest wrestler, top five, top 10, and Hulk Hogan's not one, two, three, or four. It's hard to
Yeah, I
believe,
mean,
especially at our age. Maybe some of the younger people, but our age, we have to give that respect to Hulk Hogan. Love him, hate him. The man revolutionized the sport of wrestling, and we probably wouldn't
yes.
be here today without Hulk Hogan. I know he did some things, said a few things, but nobody's perfect. So you got to give these people their flowers when they do uh, revolutionize things for the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you came into the sport a little bit before I did. You want to get us started on how what you know about Hulk Hogan's beginnings?
Oh yeah, definitely. We could talk about it. Well, his name is Terry Bollea,
Mm,
and he's known as the name Hulk Hogan, obviously. And man, Hulk Hogan, he started off. Well, actually, he a lot of people know that he grew up in Tampa, Florida, right?
mm,
But here's a tidbit: he was actually born in Augusta, Georgia,
right. Hmm.
and then the family moved to Tampa. And so in Tampa, obviously you could tell he's a big guy, 6'6", 6'7". Turned out to be a big guy, and he was an athlete, pretty good athlete, and especially at the baseball, he played a lot of baseball in Tampa. And by the way, Tampa, Florida there's a lot of famous players that have come out of that area, like Gary Sheffield, Doc Gooden. Those
Right.
guys have came out of there, and I think Gary Sheffield and Doc Gooden played Little League around the same time. So imagine that. But
Mm,
you have Hulk Hogan, out of Tampa area. He was into music. He was in a band, and
right.
that was kind of the direction he was going to really go. But then somehow he got, I guess, looked at by the the was it the Briscoe brothers or somebody was looking at him. We'll make sure to get that out there. But anyway, he was discovered, and then he started getting into professional wrestling. So he started off in a Florida division of wrestling, and then so from there, he kind of cut his teeth.
Mm,
Well, he ended up eventually getting into the AWA, American Wrestling Alliance. And I think that was around 77 when he started with that. And and he was, he was doing well there. Like he had matches with so you remember Jesse the Body Ventura?
right. Right. Hmm.
Yeah, so he had some matches with him and some Nick Bockwinkel and guys like that. And so that's what Nick Bockwinkel was like the man at AWA. He's basically Mr. AWA. Kind of ran the show there.
Right.
And so Hogan started building up a lot of popularity there. Hogan also learned some things, like for example, Dusty Rhodes was one of his favorite wrestlers, and so he
Oh
looked
wow.
at, yeah, he watched Dusty Rhodes, and you know about how the Hogan does the Hulk up and everything, how he
Right.
hulks
Right.
up and makes his comebacks and all that. So he took something from Dusty Rhodes. He noticed that Dusty Rhodes in his matches, um, that Dusty would get hit and then he'll fall like bricks, right? And this is a picture of him in the AWA. And as you can see, there's Mean
Mm,
Gene Okerlund. So yeah,
right.
these
Right.
guys go
Rest in
way
peace to
back.
Big
But
Gene.
yeah, a lot of these guys end up transitioning to WWE, which we'll get into in a little bit. But um, he basically modeled a lot of the comeback part from Dusty Rhodes, where you see Dusty Rhodes getting beat up, and he just, it looks like he's just done, down and out, and then he gets hit a couple times, and he kind of fights through it and comes back. So that's where he got that from, right? He
Hmm.
also got the name Hulk Hogan. He kind of took that from Lou Ferrigno with the Incredible Hulk. And so
Right.
Lou
Right.
Ferrigno, who played that Hulk character, he had a talk show. Hogan was on the talk show one time, and Lou Ferrigno was like, "Wow, you're bigger than I am." You know what I mean? So Vince McMahon kind of took from that and was like, "Hey, you need to be Hulk Hogan." They kind of worked that stuff out. So that's how
Right.
you get the Hulk Hogan. He had some other names before that, and we'll put him on the comment section um, before he turned into Hulk Hogan, if you will.
Hmm.
But we'll get those out there later. Where he transitioned into WWF back in like around like a year or two after that from the AWA, and so he leaves the AWA, signs with WWF, and a lot of people don't know this, but he was a heel. Okay, he started
Right.
off as a bad guy in the WWF. Many people around our age range, Reggie, didn't see Hogan as a heel. We saw him as, the yellow and gold, the
Right.
hero, But right before that, just a couple years before, around that 78 to about maybe 80, 81, he was a heel. Classy Freddie Blassie. He was a heel manager. You see, he has the cane. That came into play a lot of his matches. But Hogan was, as you can see, a big guy, and he was just basically destroying people, and basically did slams, and he had the leg drop and did all that kind of stuff. But he just did it in a bad way, and so he was a bad guy for a couple years. One match that I want to highlight, and this is something that maybe a lot of people don't know, but and we're going to eventually talk about WrestleMania 3, right, with the big Andre the Giant slam.
Right.
But there was a slam before that, and it was 80-81 at Shea
Mhm.
Stadium.
Right.
And as you see, Hogan switched his colors, but he was still a heel at this time. And Andre the
Mhm.
Giant was the face, the good guy. And so
Right.
Hogan actually slammed Andre the Giant at some point in time in this match. And I think it was after the suspension, because I think Hogan got disqualified in this match, as you see the refs down, and then in anger, Hogan picked up Andre and slammed him. So that was back in the 80s. You can Google that match. I mean, YouTube that match, and you'll see it. But he actually slammed Andre back then. And we're gonna move forward to Hogan turning into the good guy, right? So he eventually, as you stated, he beat the Iron Sheik in 1984, January 23rd, and this was like the beginning of Hulkamania. So this is how Hulkamania was born. And so he defeated Iron Sheik. He broke the camel clutch, won the title. Match was really quick, but this was the beginning of Hulkamania. And so
Right.
a little backdrop on this, Reggie, is that the Iron Sheik, Nick Bockwinkel, as I mentioned earlier from AWA, he was upset
Hmm.
that Hogan left and went to
Right.
WWF. A lot of, you see Mean Gene, you see, I mentioned earlier that Jesse Body was over there. There's a lot of wrestlers that came from AWA over to WWF. And in particular, Hulk Hogan was one that Nick Bockwinkel was not happy about and leaving. And he actually put a $100,000 bounty out.
Hmm.
Um, and he had Iron Sheik, he offered Iron Sheik to actually break Hogan's leg.
Right.
Iron
Right.
Sheik is no joke. He's a real wrestler. He's a real, AAU wrestler, Olympian, Olympic coach. He actually coached USA in wrestling. And Iron
Hmm.
Sheik, from what people say, he can really, fold you up into a pretzel if he really wanted to.
Right. He's a
So,
tough guy
but
too. Hmm.
yeah, but Iron Sheik decided he chose not to do that, and to go on with everything. So Iron Sheik, we got to give him a little love there, because without him being the guy from Iran, the anti-hero, you know what I mean? I mean, not hero, but just the villain, the
Right.
ultimate villain. You got USA going on, like things happened in the war for real back then, and so it just worked out perfect. So Iron Sheik helped everybody, helped the rest of the world as well, along with Hogan and Vince McMahon, to usher in this Hulkamania era, rock and wrestling era, and all that good stuff.
Right. Right. Right.
All
And I'm
right,
glad you
so
mentioned
now we
that.
at WrestleMania 1. Yeah.
Right.
So
And
go
I'm
ahead. You
glad
want
you
to
mentioned that.
chime in for a minute?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that rock and wrestling because it was Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon, and I think he worked with MTV get some stars over Cyndi
Correct.
Lauper, uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different entertainers at that time in the 80s were getting on the bandwagon. And like you said, it was a boom in cable network. So Vince was like, hey, I have this idea, uh, WrestleMania. We'll see how it goes. And I'm not sure if he was confident that it was going to blow up like it did, but
Mm-hmm.
because of that 80s rock and roll wave, it really hit. WrestleMania 1 had a lot of entertainers. I think Muhammad Ali was he a special announcer or a ref? And
Well,
then
he
you
was a
see
special. He was out the referee outside the ring. Yeah, he was the
right,
second ref
right,
because it was
right.
two refs needed for this
That was
tag
a
match.
big that was really big to have Muhammad Ali at your first event. We all know rest in peace to the greatest Muhammad
Yes.
Ali. And as you see, Mr. T was Hulk Hogan's partner. A Team was booming back then. Mr. T with the
Yeah.
gold chains and
Yeah.
the mohawk. Everybody wanted to be Mr. T, tough guy like that on your side. It was just a perfect match, perfect match to hit mainstream media like that, and everybody wanted a piece of it. So at the end of the day, it paid off for Vince. Sprung to one of the biggest probably the biggest wrestling event of all time. That's the granddaddy of them all, as they say. So
Yeah.
I think it was Hulk Hogan, Mr. T versus who was it? You got to tell me who
Roddy
their opponent
Piper,
was. Roddy
Roddy
Piper,
Piper, and Paul Orndorff.
Paul Orndorff with Cowboy. What's his name? Dang,
Yeah.
name escaped me.
Bob Orton. Yeah.
Cowboy Bob Orton in their corner. And I think Hogan them had somebody in their corner. I think you said last week. I forgot who it
Superfly.
was. Superfly
Superfly.
Jim Snooker. Right. So that was the main event for that WrestleMania. And I remember renting that tape. I was kind of old when I rented the tape. Not old, but it was past WrestleMania. It was probably WrestleMania 3, and I had to go back and watch that. And I was like, man, what is this?
Yeah.
But it was one of the biggest events ever, and it just sprung Hulkamania off to another level. And Mr. T helped give him that rub, and from there
Yeah.
on, you just couldn't wait to the next Hulk Hogan match. He had us saying our prayers, eating our vitamins, wearing the red and yellow. I'm not sure at that time if he had the theme song yet, Real American.
At
I
some
think he
point,
got
it came along. It came along
right,
at some point, but he had the Eye of the Tiger. Remember that from the Rocky Three?
right. For that match, he did have the Rocky Eye of the Tiger. He just all those '80s culture things just was put into WrestleMania on
Yeah.
top of Hulk Hogan, just made it a big event, which led to the next pay per view, WrestleMania 2. And WrestleMania 2 for me was the one that actually uh, it's not one of the greatest WrestleManias, but it developed this storyline with Hulk Hogan facing the big guy, whoever the big monster heel was. So
Yeah.
yeah, and he went against King Kong Bundy in the steel cage. King Kong, of course, Hulk Hogan could sell a storyline. King Kong Bundy had broken his ribs, so he wanted to
Yeah.
get revenge on King Kong Bundy in that cage match. And whole cage was shaking. Two big guys going at it. At the end, of course, Hulk Hogan's going to win, and just another notch on his belt and another light to the match that was already going.
Hmm. You know what else I like about WrestleMania 2? They had that Battle Royal in Chicago. And by the way, they
Hmm.
had three different places. There was at Nassau
Right,
Coliseum the first
right.
first hour or so, and then it was at Rosemont, Illinois, near Chicago, where they had the Battle
Hmm.
Royal. They had the British Bulldogs. I think they won the tag titles against Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine. Like all that was going on. And then over in Los Angeles, the main event that you talked about with Hogan and Bundy. So as you can see, it was growing, and now they covering the whole country. You know what I'm saying? In one night, that was unique as well.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, WrestleMania 2. That was one of my favorites too. That was one
Oh,
of my
really?
favorites as well. Yeah, I like WrestleMania 2. Not saying it like you said, it wasn't the greatest. I'm just saying it's one of my favorites
Right, right,
because I remember the battle royal that they had with all the NFL players that were in there at that time, like the Refrigerator Perry
right.
and guys
Refrigerator
like that.
Perry.
So
Yep, yep.
yeah. So that just kind of play off what you were saying about how they brought a lot of celebrities in to mix it into the wrestling world. Hogan used to also model himself after superstar Billy Graham, as you can
Right,
see right here. You know, he was before Hogan, but that this, everybody has somebody ahead of them, and this is like the look that basically he had, and kind of mirrored off that. And
right.
this is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. So just for
Right,
those
because
who
like you
didn't get to
said,
see this guy,
Jesse, the Body Ventura had that same beach blonde
yep,
rock star look back then. So it wasn't that he was actually just copying, straight up copying them. That was just the
right,
thing back then. That
right,
beach
that was the
blonde,
look,
rock and roll, kind of flamboyant colors, tie dye colors. So yeah, it wasn't just he was rubbing off those guys. He was influenced by what was going on socially too.
yeah,
And
absolutely,
I think from there he may have since he blew up so big. I think him and Andre used to be real good friends leading
yeah,
up before WrestleMania 3. They were really good friends. They used to tag up a lot, and I think Andre seen that Hogan kind of forgot about him, and he did one of the worst things in Hogan's eyes. It was he joined up with Bobby the Brain Heenan and Heenan
Yeah,
and they kind of broke Hogan's heart. It broke his heart. And actually,
yeah.
for me, do you know? For me, I probably seen Andre before then, but that moment when they had that interview and Andre snatched his chain off, that's
Oh
my early.
yeah,
That's my earliest remember of Andre. For
yeah,
some reason, I can't remember before then, but they had to tell the fans they had Andre challenge Hulk Hogan uh, for a match, and Hogan was like, "What are you doing with this guy? What are you doing with Bobby?"
yeah.
And Andre went on to tell him that he wanted a match. Hulk Hogan always wears a cross around his neck. Andre snatched the cross, and props to the cameraman. He zoomed in on Hogan and had a little blood run off his chest when the cross had scratched him. So
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was good
all the
stuff.
little Hulkamanians definitely felt that, and uh, for the first time, you felt like, hey, this might be the end of this thing. Andre's a big guy. I don't think Hogan might be able to topple him. But if you want
Exactly.
to, right. If you want to lead us into WrestleMania 3, so we can cover that a little bit.
Okay, so that's what you just talked about, right? The betrayal of Andre the Giant, which led to, as you can see, a sea of people behind Vince McMahon right here.
Hmm.
WrestleMania 3, um, and they went for it. So they had it at the Silver Dome at that time, where the
Right.
Detroit Lions play, and the Pontiac Silverdome, and they ended up putting approximately 93,000 people in there
In the
for this
seats, right.
match. Yeah, so you already know this was a big deal here, and I
Right.
remember, my dad ordering this for us, and the friends, buddies, and everybody came over. We watched it because nobody, everybody wanted to see if Hogan can beat Andre, because this is the
Right.
one guy that we all was in awe of. Like, there's no way this big guy can be beaten, but there they are in the ring. You see Hogan eventually slamming, and that's why I want to show you what happened earlier, a couple, in like 80, 81, that
Mm-hmm.
Hogan picked him up and slammed him. Now, when this happened, this was a monumental moment. It was on the
99.
news, it was on everything for Hogan to do this. He did get the
Right.
victory, and once again, Hulkamania ran wild. But WrestleMania 3, man, that was huge. 93,000. Now they're going to dome stadiums. They're
Right.
showing that they
Right.
can pack out a dome, and so that
Right. But
that's
that was really the start of it. That was really the start of the big one. The
right.
big draw, the big pay-per-view. Did you want to cover the backstory about Andre and if Hogan in the victory? You know that little
Okay,
story.
well, yeah. Okay, well, yeah. Leading up to this match, um, obviously, I don't know exactly how wrestling works, and I try not to want to know everything. That way you still have a surprise in there. But we all know that the outcomes are generally predetermined. Sometimes things change on the fly. You know what I mean? So, uh, according to the story with Hulk Hogan, Hogan already had like how the match should go, and he would try to pitch it to Andre, pitch it to Andre, pitch it to him. But Andre is like, nope, see you in the ring, see you in the ring. And Hogan was legitimately concerned, not knowing how this was going to go, not knowing how this match was
Yeah.
going to end up. And so at any time, Andre the Giant, you see how big he is. He could just kind of change the story, if you will, if he wanted
Hmm.
to. And so Hogan didn't even know, coming out of the curtain, didn't know how it was gonna roll. If you notice a lot in this match, if you go back and watch it, Andre the Giant hung out around the ropes a lot.
Right.
He
Hmm.
was really battling a lot of injuries and ailments, and this was pretty much near the end of his wrestling career because of these injuries and stuff. But you see, he had to stay near the ropes so he can use the ropes to get up. And so if you go
Right.
back and watch it, you'll see that he's hanging around the ropes a lot in this match. But everything worked out, and Hogan won. Crowd goes home happy. A lot of money's made, and so
Right.
that's pretty much the story behind that. But nobody knew what was going to happen, and that's how Andre the Giant played it with a lot of wrestlers. Randy
Hmm.
Savage. when Savage and Andre later on started getting in the matches. Savage likes to know how things are going to flow, and Andre
Right.
doesn't do that.
In particular.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he doesn't do that. You just got to do what you do when you're in the ring, and
Right.
call your stuff while you're in there. Play, do it off feel, if you will. And so that's how that went. So yeah, that's the backdrop of all that. So
Right.
we can move
And Andre
forward from
was like
there.
that last. I guess he was a pass the torch guy for Hogan because he was at real before that. Andre was real big. He was a draw. The
Oh yeah,
circus act. Everybody wanted to see.
oh yeah,
Really, everybody. Even though Hogan was like coming into his own, still people
yeah.
wanted to see Andre, the big guy. So uh, you always going to recognize Andre too for giving Hulk Hogan that rub. Hey man, this thing is yours from now on.
Good point.
Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit.
hmm Good point. That is very
Right.
good and valuable.
And
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say we're talking about Andre. Um, Also, Andre ended up beating Hulk Hogan in a twist uh, for the
Good.
title, a double referee twist for the title. So there we go, right there on one of the biggest nights there was, Saturday night main event, Hulk Hogan versus Andre. You might want to look that up on YouTube, people. Talking about historical people out there that likes to go back and watch good wrestling events. This one had a good twist to it. $1 Million Man paid Andre at the end for that title belt. He paid to have a double referee, Earl Hebner's twin in there. So it was a lot of shenanigans, which led to the title being vacated. So Hulk Hogan had actually didn't defend the title at the next WrestleMania 4. It was a tournament for the title. And Randy Savage, who was skyrocketing at that time also, he ended up winning that because Hulk Hogan and Andre actually faced each other and both got
Yeah.
disqualified. So
Right.
we knew it was going to be a new champion. Last two were $1 Million Man, who wanted the belt. As I said, he wanted the belt. He actually was one
Yeah.
of the last in the tournament with Macho Man. And
Yeah.
Vince went with Macho Man. He loves to have a baby face. Macho Man, just like Hulk Hogan was a heel up until then. But that moment, Elizabeth on his shoulders, that kind of sparked him into going babyface.
Yeah.
And
Very good.
right. So he was a champion after that time. Macho Man was a champion, and that led up to, hey, I'm still over here, Vince. What are you gonna do with me? Hulk Hogan wanted to be in the spotlight as well. You got two superstars at this time. They joined forces to topple Andre, Hogan's rival, Ted DiBiase now, having a feud with Macho Man. And this created an explosion in kids' minds. Two of the hottest wrestlers teaming up to become the Mega Powers. And you have the beautiful Miss Elizabeth as the eyepiece, eye candy, as you could say, Macho Man's manager, managing both of them. It was real. Wrestling was really at its peak right then when you had Macho Man, Hulk Hogan as two baby faces.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then Reggie, at some point in time, they ended up getting to a point where the mega powers exploded. You know,
Right.
they had some good victories. They took care of Zeus, if you remember him, and all that, and
Right.
and characters like that. But yeah, the mega powers beat the Mega Bucks at SummerSlam '88, which
Right.
was DiBiase and Andre.
Right.
Remember they
Right.
beat
They
the Mega
became
Bucks.
right. They became the Megabucks exactly. And
Yeah.
I think it was after that. This
hmm
picture that you see on the screen right here is from a another Saturday night main event where Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Mega Powers took on the twin towers of Hakeem, the African Dream, and Big Boss Man. Rest in peace to
yeah.
both of those guys. I think both of those guys have passed. And in that
Oh wow.
match, Hulk Hogan, no Macho Man, I think uh, inadvertently hit Miss Elizabeth. She was knocked down. and Hulk Hogan went to save her while Macho Man was in the ring. Not
Yeah.
only did he save her, he left Macho Man out there by himself.
Taking on Macho Man girl.
Right, he took Macho Man's girl while Macho Man was wrestling. The sneaky move, there, Hulkster, sneaky move. I think the match concluded. I forgot who got the win in that match, but the
Yeah.
match concluded, and Macho Man went looking for him. He caught him in the back.
Yeah.
Confirmed Hogan said he had some lustful eyes. You got lustful eyes for Elizabeth. And of course,
Oh
Hogan
man.
denied it. Hogan denied it, but Macho Man wouldn't have him that. So
Right.
he attacked him. Like you said, the Mega Powers exploded, and we didn't know what side to pick.
Right. And that led to what, WrestleMania 5, was it? Because that
Right,
was back to
right,
back at Trump Towers at that
right.
time. Yeah.
WrestleMania 5.
And then Hogan ends up winning that match, and he gets the title, back into his hands again.
Which was
But
one of my
yeah,
favorite Hogan matches. I think I could give credit to Macho Man for that because, like you say, he's a good technical wrestler.
yeah.
So that was a nice match. I actually really enjoyed that match.
Hmm.
But we
Oh
were
yeah,
like we was in the middle of Hulkamania and nothing was going to stop Hulkamania. So
yeah,
you had to put the title back on him at that time. Macho Man
absolutely.
did the job for him, and Hulk Hogan continued rolling, continued giving I think what the fans loved is that show Hulk Hogan gives at the end of every WrestleMania up to that point, except for 4. He puts on the show, getting the crowd into it, and you can't help but be a fan. Everybody screaming and hollering, and he waving and pointing at you. Little kids in the audience getting tapped, getting high fives and stuff. So at that point in time, Hulk Hogan could do no wrong.
Right,
He really could do no wrong, and all eyes were really on him and his storylines in the WWF.
absolutely.
Uh, what you remember what happened leading up to the next WrestleMania, the next big event for Hulk Hogan?
WrestleMania 6, you had the
Right,
Royal Rumble,
right.
and in the Royal Rumble there was a moment where you had Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, and I think the Warrior at that time, if we go back to SummerSlam '88, that's when the
Mm,
Warrior came out of nowhere. He was the mystery opponent for the Honky Tonk Man. And at the
right,
time, Honky Tonk Man was the longest reigning intercontinental champion of all time. You know what I mean? That was his thing. And so the Warrior came out and just blitzed him, just crushed him real quick. And he
right,
was in and out the ring, and everybody was just going nuts. So the Warrior was like hot. And so
right, right,
that's where you have this guy that, wow, he looks, kind of like the Hogan. You know what I mean? He has the part, and kind of like maybe the one that can move into the next decade. That
right,
could be the
right,
Hogan for the next decade. The younger kids now, that will be their Hogan, if you will. So you kind of had this. Really, you finally had somebody like from maybe the next generation, or that could take take the mantle from Hogan, or at least
right.
be
Because
an
we're
opponent.
leading up into the '90s at that point. The '80s is over with.
Right,
We're into the '90s, right? Right.
right, and it might have been getting a little bit stale, if you will,
Hmm.
with the Hogan run and everything. And as you say, as you move into another decade, now people are getting a little more sophisticated. You know what I'm saying? And like, okay,
Right.
we need to see something else. That kind of thing. So the Royal Rumble, we talked about the current one that's coming on this Saturday, but Royal Rumble, that's where a lot of storylines are developed and things like that. And so like Hogan and Warrior had their battle, and everybody wanted to see that matchup. So
Right.
let's fast forward to WrestleMania 6, because this was a big one too. This is one
Hmm.
where had to order it, had to watch it at the house. The whole
And I
neighborhood
should
got
have
to
been
get together.
near you as a kid.
Hey man, I'm telling you, man, look, man, we were getting it in, man. SummerSlam '88 was at my friend Sean's house down the street. So watched it down there. WrestleMania 6 was at my house. WrestleMania 3 was at my house. But there was a whole bunch of other matches that we got together and watched too. Starcade, but we saved those for another time. But
Right.
all those kind of matches too. We're not gonna forget the NWA as well. But
Right.
Hogan and the Warrior, WrestleMania 6.
Mm.
This is the match right here, man. Everybody, you talking about Andre the Giant and Hogan. this was the match right here that everybody wanted to see at this point. Was
Right.
can the Ultimate Warrior take out Hulk Hogan? Both of these guys
Right.
are like forces, and just a we'll get to the storyline after this. How about that? So
Right.
let's just talk about this match, Reggie. I'll let you talk about it, and then I'll give you the backdrop on it.
Okay, for me, the actual match. Say what you want to say about Hogan. I actually think he has some good matches. 'Cause this was actually another good match to me.
Yeah.
And if you know something about Ultimate Warrior, there's a lot of matches that there's not
Mm.
long matches. They're not the best technical matches, but they actually drawed out a good story. As you see, that's a good. I'm glad you chose that picture to put up for the fans. Uh, the test of strength. That's basically what this matchup represented to me. The test of strength. Like I said, the irresistible force meaning the immovable object, and that being Hulk Hogan. The irresistible force is Ultimate Warrior, two baby faces, and
Yep.
at that point, I really looking back at it, I really didn't know who to choose.
Yeah.
I that match you
Everybody was
mentioned,
conflicted.
right? That match you mentioned with Honky Tonk Man, that just really made me a Warrior fan. So I really didn't know who to choose and what the outcome of the match was going to be. They put on a pretty good match to me. Hulk Hogan, I think he did after Warrior press slammed him, splash his finisher. Hulk Hogan, as we thought, he hulked up. He hulked
Yeah.
up. He was like, "Hey, here it is. Here it is. We've seen it before. He's gonna hulk up. He's gonna get the win." Good picture, double clothesline, knocking them all out. You
Yeah.
don't see that. Don't see that too often nowadays. But
Right.
he hulked up. He hit him with the big boot, and here comes the finish. Hogan jumps up in the air. Warrior moves.
Yeah.
So everybody at that point is just.
Right. This is not
I
how it's
was
supposed to
shocked.
end.
I was shocked, man. Definitely not supposed to end like that. Warrior hits him with the big splash. One, two, three. At that point, we thought Hulkamania was over.
Yeah. Oh,
He,
absolutely.
yeah, Hogan went outside. A lot of people thought he might go outside, run away with the belt or something, but he did the job. He gave Warrior the belt, raised his hand, and he walked out and left it to the Warrior at that point.
I mean, because how often did we see Hogan, even if he lost a match, how often did we see him lose it fair and square?
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's
Like he
yeah,
lost that match straight up. Like if somebody was gonna beat Hogan, they had the manager had to get involved or two referee, twin refs. Like we talked about with the Saturday Night Main Event part. And by the way, on
right.
that Saturday Night Main Event, you had 33 million people watching that thing.
Yeah, I
On
think
on
that was the biggest one of NBC's biggest events. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if it's toppled yet, but I know this one of the biggest events ever.
33 million people watched that back
Yeah,
in 1988. I
yeah,
mean, we get excited when right now I think the tops is usually about what 2 million that
right,
watch a show, which is a WWE show. That's pretty much the only shows putting over, make 2 million in there like
right. Those
SmackDown or
numbers,
something. But
right,
yeah, but 33 million watched that Saturday Night's Main Event. Just think about that, like how
right.
hot wrestling was back in these days. But
Those
yeah,
are those not just wrestling fans. Those are a lot of casual fans
yeah,
tuning in. They heard about it. Hey, I want to watch this thing. That was actually one of those events
yeah,
that everybody wanted to see back then.
absolutely. All right, so the Warrior wins that match. Now he's the new guy. And by the way, he was an intercontinental champion at the time too. So
Right,
he's a double champ. You know what I
right.
mean? Go
That match
figure.
was title for title.
Yeah, yeah. So go figure that. Like what we have now with double champs going on.
Right,
But Warriors the double champ now. I think they had him relinquish the intercontinental title
right,
because it would be tough for him to defend both belts every month. Which makes sense. They
right,
figured out a
right.
way to get it off. And so now you're thinking, okay, this guy's going to run away with it. Now, I'll let you talk about that piece, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you the backdrop of um, the Hogan Ultimate Warrior match,
Hmm.
WrestleMania 6. So Hogan was ready to Vince McMahon was ready to kind of see who else if the Warrior could be next and move this thing forward. Hulk Hogan was on board with that.
Right.
He just wanted it to end a different way. Hogan wanted to be Triple H. He wanted to be Triple H, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Get it?
Right.
H H
Right.
H.
Right. The
So he
first
wanted,
Triple H.
yeah, he wanted to be Triple H at that time, and so that's before Triple H even started wrestling WWE. So, but what he did was he pitched to McMahon that the match ends, and as we all remember, Hogan kind of graciously left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he got into the cart that looks like a ring, and it drove him off. And he's kind of looking like, thank you, congratulations,
Right.
Warrior. Being a gracious, being gracious in defeat. But what he
Right.
wanted to do was act like he was gracious in defeat, maybe hand on the belt, raise his arm up, do that kind of thing, and then cheap shot him. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And then basically what that meant was Hogan would just turn heel, you know, the ultimate American hero, prayers, vitamins, all that good stuff. He turns heel after losing the match. He thought that that would actually help the Ultimate Warrior. Vince McMahon was like, no, no way you're going to do that. Too invested in Hogan being you know, the clean
Right.
guy.
Marketing
So,
and all that. Yeah.
right. So McMahon wasn't down for that. So they didn't do it. But that's what possibly would have happened if McMahon was like, okay, and sign off on that. So that's the
Mm.
story there. We even put the story out here on the thing later on tonight, so that anybody want to click on it, they can. But what happened after that, Reggie, with the Warrior?
After that, Warrior had he started his feud back up with Ravishing Rick Rude. They made an event, SummerSlam. I think they made a main event that he previously lost to Rude, the Intercontinental title. He got it back, like you said. He defended that against Hogan and won the World Championship. And he chose Rude as his first opponent. Then they had a steel cage match at SummerSlam. It was a good
Mm-hmm.
match, but it just seemed like something was missing. He went on. Did he feud with Andre? I'm not sure when he had the belt, or was that after? I think it may have been after he had the belt that
Okay.
he feuded with Andre. But he had the match with Ravishing Rick Rude at SummerSlam, the cage match, which was okay. And I think the fans were missing out on that. That, like I said before, that show afterwards, that
Right.
feel good. You didn't really have that feel good moment um, at SummerSlam and all the other events that Warrior headlined at that time. I actually don't remember too many victories he had besides that one
Right.
with Ravishing Rick Rude when he held the title. I'm sure he might have defended at some house shows, some lesser shows, but really that was the biggest one I think he did because he didn't headline the next WrestleMania. He actually fought Sergeant Slaughter, who was a heel. He used to be a babyface, but he came back as an Iraqi sympathizer. We had the Iraq war going on at that
Yeah.
time, so he came back as a Iraqi sympathizer. And I should have done my research, but he took on the Ultimate Warrior at an event. And he ended up beating the Warrior
Right.
for the WWF Championship. So now we have
Mm-hmm.
a heel champion. And not to put it on the Warrior, but we were going back to Hulk Hogan. At that time, the Warrior was facing Sergeant Slaughter. I'm getting my time frames mixed up, but I'm sure it was then that Hulk Hogan actually was in a feud with Earthquake. Earthquake had hurt Ultimate Hulk Hogan,
Right.
and that's how they kind of wrote Hulk Hogan off, so the Warrior can take center stage with
Mm-hmm.
Earthquake coming out and hurting Hulk Hogan. So Hulk Hogan was out due to a rib injury while the Warrior took on um, the throne. And at SummerSlam, actually, this goes to show that the Warrior, Vince could probably see that he wasn't a guy. The Warrior co-headline SummerSlam that was advertised as a double main event. You had Hulk Hogan coming back to face Earthquake, and you had Ultimate Warrior going against Robinson Rick Rude, and a lot of us, I know I was looking forward to the Hogan match.
Yes.
What about you? How did you see Hogan at that time while Warrior was having the throne?
Well, it just I think it was like a lot of people. A lot of people thought that Hogan would, I mean, that the Warrior would take the mantle, you know what I mean, and just be the
Mhm.
guy. And so I think what happened a lot about the Warrior was, and I'm just going to say this not from the perspective of being a fan as a kid, but
Right.
just with the wrestling perspective and things that we've heard is that Warrior was definitely, he was an awful wrestler, and so
Hmm.
I think he was doing things that were a little dangerous in the ring. Wrestlers were not
Right.
comfortable having matches with him. I mean, they dreaded having a match with him. You know what I mean? So I think it just didn't work. And also, you go back to Hogan, you talk about what he does after the match, but even his interviews, you know what I mean, before the
Mhm.
match and things like that and
Right.
all his antics, he was able to sell a good match, get you involved. And I think with the Warrior, he was kind of like a one trick pony. And so
Mhm.
after a while, that's gonna, it's gonna fizz out real quick. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
After you do that a couple times, it's like, okay, but what are you doing to engage yourself with the fans? You know, when are we gonna feel sorry for you a little bit? And doubt that you can win. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it
Right.
really wasn't many layers to the Warrior. So that was just kind of like like how you wait on one of them comments to go by real quick, and you got to
Right.
wait for the next one. It was kind of like that. And
Right. Right.
so with Hogan, him getting back involved, it's kind of like, okay, we can get back to what it was, and maybe he could do these things against other opponents. And
Hmm.
so that's why I kind of, I still like the fact that Hogan was back. And I was looking forward to him going against certain opponents. And speaking of that, let's talk about a what if.
Mm.
And there was a world champion that was in another wrestling association, the NWA champion, Nature Boy Ric Flair. So he ends up signing with WWF. He comes over to WWF. Hogan is still there. And there's the match that we wish we would have had, Reggie. What you
Right.
think?
Right. Right. Just let the fans know. Hogan did come back and beat Sergeant Slaughter for that belt at
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. By the
WrestleMania.
way,
What was that? WrestleMania 7?
I think that was 7.
Yeah, he beat Sergeant Slaughter.
7. Yeah.
Slaughter, because like we said, Vince McMahon wasn't happy with the Warrior. We knew he wasn't gonna have a heel champion leading the WWF. So he went
Hmm.
back to the thing that works. He went right back to Hogan, and Hogan beat uh, Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7.
Right.
And then after that, like you said, one of the greatest in another promotion, NWA, Ric Flair. Uh, they were going through changes in the NWA under new management. So Ric Flair wasn't seeing eye to eye with them. So he made a call up north to Vince McMahon. And another shocking event was when Bobby the Brain Heenan came on WWF TV with that big gold NWA belt saying the
Right.
real world champion is here. And I was a wrestling fanatic back then, Tyrell.
Yeah, I bet.
I was a wrestling fanatic. And when I seen my favorite belt, that big gold belt in WWF, my eyes lit up. I was like, no
Yeah.
way. No way. No way am I going to see Ric Flair. We already knew it. That if he came to WWF, that's the only person he was going after. So they
Yep.
didn't have to officially announce that it's what the fans wanted. Ric Flair made his debut, and the fans immediately connected those two. Ric Flair, Hogan, we got to have it next WrestleMania. We got to have it. So make it happen. Make it happen. There it is. It was even drawn up. Ric Flair, Hogan, WrestleMania 8. Probably one would have went down as probably the biggest match in wrestling history.
No
Like I
doubt
said,
about it.
would have. And the story with that one is um, Vince and actually he put on the match. So for a few people out there that went to house shows, they actually
Yeah.
saw the Ric Flair Hulk Hogan match. And in Vince's eyes, that match wasn't drawing like he thought it would draw. And I
Mhm.
don't know if it was those guys couldn't find a rhythm together or uh, just bad marketing or booking to let the fans know, hey, this is happening. And then again, you want to keep it on the hush because you know this is going to be your big match down the line. So back then we have the internet and not too many dirt sheets, so he could get away with putting that match on some shows and not really televising it or letting it know people know that was happening before it happened on big national TV. So it didn't draw like he wanted it to draw. So they went a different way for WrestleMania 8.
Yeah.
Oh, by the
They
way,
had that double. They had that double main event, right? They had Sid
right,
Justice,
right, that's right.
Sid Justice and Hogan, and maybe
Which
was it Macho Man and Flair?
is Macho Man and Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
we keep going back to, and we'll say it again. We keep going back to how Royal Rumble sets everything up. It's another storyline that got set up by Royal Rumble. The title at that time had been vacated. Hulk Hogan and the Undertaker, who had made his debut at a previous Survivor Series and was the hottest heel at that time, big guy. So you know this Hogan's territory. You got to take him on. And Undertaker, with the help of Ric Flair actually beat Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Dropped him on a steel chair, and with the tombstone, 1, 2, 3, and we had a new champion. Well, Jack Tunney saw what Ric Flair did at the time. Jack Tunney is the kayfabe
He's the president, right?
president of WWF. So he vacated the title and put it on the line at Royal Rumble. Last man standing is the WWF champion. Last four in the ring, if I recall, actually was those four. I think um, uh, Sid Justice, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and Ric Flair. And uh, we are Hulk Hogan fans, like we said. This whole show is about Hulk Hogan. So with Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan being the last four, we know it's going to be a champion. He's going to headline WrestleMania. So he's going to go on and win the belt. That's what we thought. Uh, while I think Hulk Hogan and do you remember how that went down? Hogan was tied up with someone else. I forgot who it was, and Sid dumped them both out. And Hogan was
That's
like,
right.
"Hey, huh? Say that again."
Yeah. 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 Go
It,
ahead. You're right. Go ahead.
it was Macho Man and Hogan that were tied up near the ring rope, and
Right.
Sid
And
just
Sid did
dumped
do
them
that.
off.
Yeah. Hmm.
And Hogan looks at the fans and points at him like, "Wait a minute, this guy robbed me of my moment. I'm supposed to be the champion. I'm
Right.
supposed to win this." Hogan goes, grabs Sid's hand. Ric Flair's, "Hey, this is my opportunity. I'm probably not going to beat this big guy 1-on-1." Dumps him over the rope. There we have it. Ric Flair, like I said, one of my favorite lines of wrestling history, with a tear in my eye. Bro, you there?
Am I? How's it looking? Am I
Yeah,
frozen?
yeah. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
Like I said, with a tear in my eye, Ric Flair is the champion. Now we know it's a bad champion, so we got to get our American hero to take him down. And like the backstory I gave, Vince just wasn't getting the numbers he thought he would with that match. And like I said, maybe because they couldn't find a rhythm, or maybe people just were tired of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
So we got to look at that too.
Yeah.
And
And, and also a little bit of both, a little bit of them kind of being a little long in the tooth now. You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Yeah.
They kind of had their moment in the sun, so
Yeah.
it's kind of time to move past that.
If they had this
Um,
match in the '80s, I think it would have been just bananas. But you know,
right, it would have been bananas. It would have been bananas. It's one thing we always hope for as wrestlers, wrestling fans, that sometimes those organizations put aside their differences for the betterment of the fans to have a great match like that. But
hmm
back to Hulk Hogan and Uh, so that match didn't draw. Vince went with Sid Justice versus Hulk Hogan and Macho Man versus Ric Flair for the actual title.
Yeah.
So, um, and that's actually I was about to say that's actually one WrestleMania that I missed. So I have no idea how that one turned out. I've never seen it.
Oh, you never seen
I've
what
never
was that
seen WrestleMania 8. Eight,
WrestleMania
yeah,
8?
yeah, never
Yeah, I
seen it.
think Savage. I want to say Savage had that one.
Yeah,
Uh,
Savage. I know Savage won there, but that whole Hogan match, I'm not sure how that went down. I don't know who actually won that.
oh, yeah, that match was it wasn't good. That match was not a it was not a good match. It didn't live up to the hype.
Mm,
Um, but in that one, it was just like you can tell, like, well, actually, Sid, especially Sid at that time, he wasn't good enough to kind of make Hogan, what I mean? And Hogan wasn't at the top of his game either.
right, right.
Uh, you know what I'm saying? It was just kind of not really there. Not really anything to talk about on that one. It was more like a disqualification. So, Reggie, am I still there? Reggie, where you at?
I'm
You
backstage.
there, Reggie?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, there you go. No, that match was. I mean, they just kind of kicked and punched each other, and Hogan ended up winning on a DQ.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it was kind of anticlimactic there. Um, but like I said, if that match was maybe a couple years prior, I think we would have had something. You would have had Hogan against this monster and Sid.
Right,
But again, I think you kind of see Hogan not quite as good as he once was. You know what I mean?
right.
As
And
far
Sid
as
was
the
kind of
in
young
the
in the
ring.
game. Sid
Yeah,
Hogan was older and Sid was young, so yeah, it didn't make for a good WrestleMania match.
yeah,
And after that, I think Hogan just vanished for a while.
yeah. It was kind of weird, wasn't it?
Right, right.
Until WrestleMania 9.
WrestleMania 9. So we on to the new generation era in WWF. And we got guys coming up, the Rockers, which has Shawn Michaels coming in. Bret Hart was going on his solo run. So we had Mr. Perfect. So it was some different guys in the main event picture at that time. Some smaller wrestlers due to the controversial steroid trial, which Hulk Hogan was involved in also, and that also played a little bit into his disappearance for a while. But we'll save that part for another show.
Right, another show.
Right. So he was playing it low for a little while, and then out of nowhere, Bret Hart is the man. But also we have another guy that comes in, and he takes the role of the new heel in town.
Hmm.
So there is a new heel. That guy's Yokozuna, um, Japanese, played by a Samoan,
Yep.
Rodney Anawai. Um, and he played a Japanese sumo wrestler because he was so big, and he played it perfectly.
Yeah.
I think he weighed in
Had me
near.
fooled.
He had me fooled until I was really older. I was older,
Yeah.
but I figured, hey, this guy is really not Japanese.
Yeah.
But he played the role great. He like 400 or 500 pounds, was crushing, running through everybody, and he ended up winning the WWF belt from Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9. Now, we have a heel champion, a foreign heel champion. We have a big guy. It's something that needs to be inserted into this picture at WrestleMania 9 to make this the perfect go home event. So, can you tell us what happened at the end of WrestleMania 9?
That right there. Hulk Hogan somehow getting involved in this match. It was I don't know what to make of this WrestleMania. It was in Las Vegas. It was like Caesars or something outside.
Yeah, it was an outdoor event.
And yeah, it just
Toga
felt
party.
kind of back. It just I don't know what it was. I mean, it just felt really weird. It didn't feel like a mega event.
Right.
Almost felt like a, like a Monday night show. You know what I mean? But hey, go figure. They eventually fixed all this over the years. But yeah, Hogan gets back involved. I think he was trying to help Bret Hart a little bit, and then
Right.
somehow him and Yokozuna get into this back and forth, and then there you have it. We got a match, and Hogan
Right.
comes out and wins the title. Like, like
Like, I
what's going on with
seriously,
this?
people, if you haven't seen that, he's really out of nowhere. He
Yeah,
had
it's weird.
Hogan did have a match on that card. It was him and Brutus Beefcake versus Money Inc., Ted
Right.
DiBiase, the Million Dollar Man, and IRS.
Hmm.
Matt Rotunda. So we thought Hogan's night was pretty much over.
Yeah.
He was nowhere involved in this storyline. Like,
Nothing.
he just came out of nowhere. Came to Bret Hart's aid, and Mr. Fuji challenged him to a match. So, and I think it was like you said, it was a lot of things that were off in that match. Um, Mr. Fuji tried to hit him with some salt. I think there was a cameraman involved.
Yeah.
Um, this is not one of the WrestleManias I can remember because I only saw it one time.
Yeah. And
I
it's
truly
one
only
of those
saw it
I
one
didn't
time.
want to watch over and over again. I think
Right,
remember the
right,
Giant
right, right.
Gonzalez was in the on the
Oh
card
yes,
somewhere in
yes,
there. It
yes.
was
Like you said, there was a lot off with that WrestleMania.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
After that, he feuded with Yokozuna for a little while, and Yokozuna actually ended up beating Hulk Hogan for the title. And after that, it just looked like he just. It wasn't like after he fought Ultimate Warrior, and he waved at the fans and
Yeah.
gave gave Warrior the torch. This was more like he just fell off the earth, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
But we can get into what resurrected Hogan. Um, and that was something that happened over in another wrestling organization, which was
right.
WCW. And so you want to talk about Hogan and the probably one of the most popular factions of all time.
Oh, we're gonna skip forward a little bit.
If you want to, unless there's something in between that you want to get.
No, we finally uh got the Hogan Ric Flair match when he came into WCW. He came in as a babyface, and we got the match that Vince was scared to book at Bash at the Beach. Hogan had made his grand return in Orlando, drawing millions of people, eyes on the WCW. He beat Ric Flair, and we're gonna condense it a little bit because
Yeah,
the next event is like one of the biggest event in his career. And between him actually winning the title and before the big event, the big turn, he really didn't have any serious um,
mm,
uh, opponents. He fought with the Dungeon of Doom, feuded with Flair a couple of times, but it wasn't really someone clicking again.
right.
It was like we seen this before, and we're tired of it at this point.
Yeah,
I know you tried to, revive it, bring it back, but it's still the same thing. And the fans were getting tired of it, and something had to give if we didn't if Hogan didn't want to hang up his boots. He's trying to reinvent himself. Something had to give, and the, one of the biggest shocks in sports. I'm gonna say it like this, Mr. 411. I think that might be American history. I think
you can put it in the books.
I think that might be one of the
You can
biggest
put it in the
moments in
school books.
American
Okay.
history. Right. You put it in the school book. But can you tell us what happened? What was so big?
Oh man, what was huge about this was the Hogan actually turning on all the fans in WC, in the WCW, and
Right.
actually teaming up with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and forming the NWO.
Right, right.
And this was like, wow, Hogan is really turning into a bad guy. And like I say, this is in the 90s, right? So you got to think, we talked about earlier, he was a heel when he, first got going in
Right,
WWF,
right,
late 70s. So no one really remembers that. You know what I mean? And it
right,
wasn't like that lasted forever. You didn't
right.
have the same media coverage at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was territorial, so people in the Northeast knew about it. But he was a heel for, a couple of years. Um, but for the most of the world, they only knew Hogan as, you know, the yellow and red, the vitamins, say your prayers, all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so when he turned, look at all the trash in the ring. I mean, people just
That,
went nuts,
that was
you
crazy.
know. Yeah, super betrayal. And it was a risk involved with this too, because,
Right.
you are flipping them. And like Vince McMahon didn't want to do it during his time. But, I think this was more so, 80s is a different time than it
Mm-hmm.
was in this 90s era. You talking like
Right.
cutting edge,
Right. Right.
you got groups like H Town, it's just a
Right.
different time. Everybody's
Right.
more
Right.
cutting
'Cause
edge.
that not just it was hard rock culture and
Yeah,
hip hop culture. And
right.
so it brought that edginess. Everybody wanted that edge,
Yeah,
that not so much of it's not these make believe superheroes or characters. It's real life people, and
right.
I think that's one thing that connected uh, Scott Hall, who was Razor Ramon in WWF. Another long story that connects all this together, but he's going by his real name.
Right. Scott
Um,
Hall. Hmm.
the former Diesel in WWF, he's going by his real name, Kevin Nash. So
Hmm.
this felt real. This felt real to us.
Yeah.
It felt real, and for Hogan to be a part of it, it really that turned the wrestling world on the shoulders. Like
Oh, absolutely. It sure did. Yeah.
that was another, and this is why the show is dedicated to Hogan, because this is the second time now this man has
Yeah.
done something to turn wrestling, the
Yeah.
whole the whole sport of wrestling, and at that time, all eyes were on WCW.
Right.
Um, Everybody at the water cooler, at school in the morning. What did the NWO do? What did NWO do? It
Right.
was just hot, and Hogan was at the head of it. You there? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And if you want to, we can wrap it up and do a part two from here, or it's up to you.
Oh no, no, keep going, Reggie. We keep going.
Uh,
Let's go ahead and get
oh,
the
okay,
NWO. Let's get the NWO story in there, and then
okay,
we'll talk about one of my favorite matches. When Hogan returns back to WWF.
okay, okay, gotcha. So at this point, the NWO is taking over. Let's see, you see the colors red and black right there, but they started off, everything was black and white. Their clothes, their promos, everything had an edge to it. So that took off, and he just with that faction that they gained vital members from the WCW to turn and become NWO. They actually at one point had their own pay per view, so to speak. But I'm not going to get into much of the matches, but I'm just want to tell them the backstory. Um, but they were running wild, and it seemed like nobody can stop them. They were going through Ric Flair, they were going through Lex Luger, they were going through Sting. Um, they went through Macho Man, so nobody could stop them. Um, uh, but one man, and I, this is my favorite wrestler of all time. That's Sting. Sting thought WCW had turned their back on him. NWO actually made a fake Sting. and WCW thought it was real Sting. But Sting, he got mad and he went away for him a while, and NWO just wrecked everybody while he was away. And then one night, uh, they put a camera up in the Raptors, and it was Sting. He was dressed in all black and white. It looked like rest in peace to Brandon Lee. He looked like the
Yeah.
Crow, which was a movie back then that
Right.
actually was kind of the same thing. It was as the WCW at that time. It was black, a lot of dark, gritty movie.
Hmm.
And Sting took on that character to start combating the NWO. And every week we were tuned in to see Hulk Hogan what he was going to do in that storyline with Sting. So it was just, I think they went on to say 83 weeks, Hulk Hogan led the WCW to top the Monday night ratings against the
Hmm.
WWF.
Yeah. And that was a time. Oh, I'm just saying
Right,
that was also a time kind of like we had an overlap where or transition where, a lot of wrestlers from the WWF at that time, Savage, you
right,
mentioned Savage, and you got Razor Ramon, aka Scott Hall, Nash, who was Diesel, Hogan, eventually Bret Hart, British Bulldog, like all these guys were leaving WWF. There was a lot of things going on in the courtrooms and stuff, but a lot of that '80s group ended up going over to WCW.
right.
Meanwhile, you have WWF, kind of retooling, if you will,
Hmm.
into what we know later on as the Attitude Era with Triple H and Stone Cold and Rock and all those guys. So
Right.
this was a huge time for the WCW.
Hmm.
And what a better person to lead the way than to have Hogan. And at this
Right.
point now, you're flipping channels on Monday nights,
Right.
trying to and trying to flip back and forth at the end to see how it ends each night. I mean, this
Right.
was great stuff. And so
Right.
you're right, Hogan has done this twice. Like
Hmm.
just turned the game, changed the game twice to a
Right.
high level. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Because, like you're saying, we were turning the channels because Raw started to do what WCW was doing with Hogan turning heel. Everything become more reality based
Yeah.
and more edgy. So Hogan really transcended both companies.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's just how big that moment was. And I don't know if people actually give him credit for that, but he actually once again changed the whole wrestling world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it fit right into the times at that point, man. So, it's a great run there. Bill Goldberg, I remember that match with Hogan and Goldberg,
Oh
the
yes,
Georgia
yes.
Dome.
I forgot because during that time, he was also there was thing. Yeah, he was still in WCW doing the black and white thing, but it was a new guy on the rise, um, big guy. He popped the crowd every time he came out. I remember the first time I saw him, he went against Hugh Morris, a mid Carter, but it was just something about him. I remember going to school the next day and telling my friends, "Did you see that match with that one guy? How explosive
Yeah.
he was!" I was like, that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
So
Goldberg.
right, so he Goldberg developed a fan base really quick. He shot up in the ranks really quick. Um, he went on an undefeated streak, just blasting through people uh, in less than 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Everybody that came up. At win number 75 in a row, he beat Raven for the United States title. So you knew he was coming for Hogan. You knew he was coming for Hogan. And that Monday in the Georgia Dome, jam packed crowd, we got that that was a big one.
Yeah.
That was a big that roof exploded that night. You
Yeah.
said that's one of your favorite matches?
That's one of them. Yeah. That's one of mine.
Oh,
More, that's one of my favorite matches.
gotcha.
Because of just the magnitude of it.
Hmm.
Again, now you have is almost it kind of give you Ultimate Warrior Hogan feel where you
Right,
have this new force, right? That's been booming and like, and then again, guess who you have to take out? Hogan, and
right.
Hogan's doing it from the other side of the fence now, being as the villain. So, I mean, Hogan is really in the middle of all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So big things, and so NWO it did its thing. Eventually, like anything else, it starts dragging out a little bit over
Right,
time because
right,
now everybody's a member of the NWO. Like, who wasn't a member of the NWO at some point? But it was a great thing, especially in its peak. It was like it was the big thing. It was a game changer,
right,
and
right,
you got to thank Hogan for that. But at some point, WWE, Vince McMahon, and WWF ends up buying WCW. All right, we
hmm
fast forwarding real quick, but they eventually buy WCW. So now everybody's wrestling in WWE now, right, or WWF at the time. So they basically created a WCW that was, supposed to be WCW, and they had this big invasion and did all that stuff. And then eventually things just kind of level out. But you
right.
had the NWO, basically infiltrating the WWF. And now we talk about favorite matches. This has to be in my top, probably my top three for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's Hulk Hogan and The Rock.
Right, right. Another.
So
It was Monday Night Raw. Hogan comes out, looks Rock in the eyes. Don't even have to say. They didn't say one word. The crowd, Rocky, Rocky, Rocky,
mhm.
Rocky, and then you can hear the shift. Hogan, Hogan, Hogan. Man, that I actually go back on YouTube and watch that a lot. That's one of
Yeah,
those actually that was that we talked about Hogan and the Warrior, how that one was. This one was Hogan and the Warrior on steroids
yeah,
because The Rock was the biggest thing. He was Hulk Hogan in the WWE, yeah,
right.
WWF at that time. He took on Hogan's mantle years later and became that superstar that it got. So at this point, it's basically like the franchise versus the franchise.
Right.
It's the future versus the past, teacher versus student.
Yes.
This had it all in it, and it's just another WrestleMania moment. And
Yes.
that match, the whole build just was it was legendary.
Yeah. It was crazy, man. This match right here at this in Toronto, I
Hmm.
think it was at the Sky Dome, if I'm not mistaken, but it was in Toronto, WrestleMania 18. Like, you can put this match in at any time and watch it, and it still give you that same chill, man, when you watch this.
Right,
But like you said, this was like the Kobe Bryant versus Michael Jordan,
exactly.
type match, if you will.
Magic
And
versus, well, can't say Magic versus Larry, but you Magic versus Isaiah. Put it that way.
I mean, you can go with that too. You can go with
Yeah.
that too. But this was it, man. It was like that's
It,
like I said, it's top three right off the top of my head. I mean, I
it,
like Flair Steamboat.
it
That's
says
another one.
it says it right there. You're looking at icon versus icon,
Yeah,
legend
amazing match.
versus future legend. Like this is one of those ones that that that'll go down in history.
You know what, Reggie? I'm gonna have to say something about this one. I think the Isaiah Thomas one and Magic. I
Hmm.
get where you're going with that, but they both kind of played in the same era.
Right,
The
right.
Rock and Hogan,
Gotcha.
even though they overlap
Right,
eras,
right, right,
they
right,
overlap two different eras. So I kind of go with the Kobe Jordan on it
right,
because
right. Gotcha,
Kobe
gotcha.
is like a whole nother generation of people's Jordan, and
Right,
and Hogan is another generation of people's Jordan.
right,
So
right, right.
two generations have a Jordan going against each other.
Right. This is a father son kind of matchup.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
it's a father son. It's a father
Yeah.
not in the aspect of Rock Hogan being father and son, but You watching it with your father because that's your dad's guy, and that's your guy. That's what I
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's it. Um, but yeah, that was something amazing there, man.
I might have
Anything
to.
else? Oh, go ahead.
Not right now. Not right now. I'm
Mhm.
gonna have to wrap up. My wife calling me.
Yeah,
We
I
can
mean that's
continue this. We can continue this. I mean, Hulk Hogan's career. We tried to sum it up a little bit, take a lot
yeah.
of
You can
stuff
wrap
out,
this up.
and you can't because it's so much.
Yeah, I mean we could do this again for another 2 hours, but
Right.
since the referee is now uh ring the bell,
Yes.
just give us your closing remarks, and then we can call it night.
For right now, I just want to, if we don't get back on Hulk Hogan, I just want to just give my flowers to Hogan. Like I said, a lot of people hate him, but can't take away from what he did to a sport that we love. So
Absolutely.
you always you got to respect. You ain't got to like him. Some may not respect them, but I think respect is due to Hulk Hogan.
All right. Well, there you go. Thanks, Reggie, for being on. We thank everybody for watching and listening. And we just highlighted Hogan. We'll put more additional information out in the comment section on the YouTube page. So,
Right.
Reggie, if you have any links and things like that, just stick it in the comments out there for
Oh,
people
okay,
to look
okay,
at.
okay, okay. I may
Yeah.
put that Rock versus Hogan thing in there.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. All right. All right. Well, we'll highlight another grappler uh, real soon. And so for Reggie, I'm Mr. 411. We thank everybody for taking the time to watch this show. We appreciate it. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Peace.